where Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua claims he is a victim of religious persecution.
Why do you think you were impeached?
The president had already made up his mind that he needed me out of office. I'm a practicing Christian, and there are certain things that I couldn't agree to.
A proposed immigration deal with the United States could threaten sovereignty and justice
of Ugandan law, because we are bringing in foreign nationals without status in this country.
The human rights activist has described the deal as a political agreement between the United States and Uganda that did not respect the fundamental human rights in the country.
Sort of human exchange for mutual benefits between Uganda and the US is a deeply political matter.
And finally, to Burkina Faso, where a new law criminalizing homosexuality has ignited outrage and fear.
Burkina Faso's ruling military junta has passed a law criminalizing homosexuality and making it punishable with up to 5 years in prison. Foreigners convicted under the new law will be deported.
Aren't just headlines, they are a reflection of deeper battles over power, values, and freedom. Let's unpack each one. Kenya is reeling after the sudden impeachment of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. The charges allegations of abuse of office, corruption, and undermining the presidency. But Gachagua isn't going quietly. In a fiery post-impeachment statement, he claimed, quote, "Like Trump, I'm being prosecuted not for what I did, but for what I believe." He says his Christian faith, his moral conservatism, and his anti-corruption stance made him a target. Now, the Trump comparison isn't accidental. It's strategic. Trump used claims of persecution to energize his base. Gachagua is doing the same, framing this as a spiritual and political takedown by Kenya's elite. So here, the million-shilling question. Was this about beliefs or behavior?
For years, Kenya was known as the pride of East Africa because of its stability, strategic location, and tourism. Well, today the country is dealing with political unrest, including deadly anti-government protests. Wendy Griffith recently spoke about these issues with a former leader who wants to be Kenya's next president.
Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and his wife, Pastor Dorcas Rigathi, just finished a U.S. tour, rallying support from fellow Kenyans living abroad about their plans.
I am a front runner, and I think I have the best chances to be president.
Last October, after 2 years of serving as Deputy President to President William Ruto, the Kenyan National Assembly voted to impeach Gachagua on charges ranging from corruption to violating the oath of office. You pled not guilty to all of the charges. Why do you think you were impeached?
The president had already made up his mind that he needed me out of office. I'm a practicing Christian, and there are certain things that I couldn't agree to.
His biggest concern, President Ruto's controversial shoot in the leg policy, designed to curb anti-government protests.
So anyone going to set ablaze anyone's business and property, such a person should be shot in the leg, be taken to hospital, and taken to court. They should not kill him.
Still, in the past year, dozens have been killed in clashes between police and demonstrators. Several news outlets also report people being abducted for practicing their constitutional right to free speech.
And I tried to persuade him in private within government that it is not right to kill young people because they were expressing themselves, and he couldn't hear of it. I had to call a press conference as Deputy President and disagree with the president in public, and he decided that we couldn't stay together.
Ruto denies responsibility for the deaths and blames political rivals for sponsoring violence within the protests. So far, President Ruto's office has not responded to CBN's request for information on why Gachagua was removed from office. However, the former deputy president compares himself to another impeached official.
This is the same thing that happened to Donald Trump. He was impeached because of what he believes in, because of his principles, because of doing what is right for the American people. I stand for what is right, and I would not have agreed to be part of government that is killing young people for whatever reason, because it's against the Ten Commandments, it's against my Christian beliefs. It is wrong.
And just like President Trump, you've had many attempts on your life.
Yes, they wanted to poison our food. It did not happen. And when I left office, my security was withdrawn, and there has been about 4 attempts on my life by armed criminal gangs under police supervision. And it has not happened because God has taken care of me. Again, it's a Trump experience.
Despite all this, the 60-year-old Gachagua says he's the man to lead Kenya into the future. In fact, you have declared yourself the front runner for the presidency. Why do you want to be president?
Well, the Kenyan people have put a lot of pressure on me because they are looking for somebody who is truthful, somebody who has integrity, and Kenyans, 82% are Christians.
Gachagua says the biggest issues facing his country, political corruption and violent protests.
The opposition has been captured, and all these institutions of oversight have been compromised, coupled with the violation of human rights. Make sure that there is nobody who can hold the president to account.
Another concern is terrorism. Although the situation isn't as bad as many African nations, Kenya keeps soldiers on its borders with South Sudan and Somalia. The military presence often provokes attacks against Kenyan citizens.
We have our soldiers in Somalia, and as a result, the Al-Shabaab keep on having reprisal attacks on the Kenyan population. All we have to do is continue upping our game in terms of intelligence collection, in terms of protecting our towns, our cities, and our people. I must say that we are very grateful to the American government for the support it has given the Kenyan government on the war on terror in terms of sharing of intelligence and the military bases that are in Kenya.
You are a lifelong Christian. How does your faith affect your political decisions?
When you are practicing Christian, undoubtedly you become a very good leader, especially if you are true to the Christian values. Our Christian faith, is very clear on family values. And to build a strong nation, you need to build strong families.
With 2 years before the election, the former deputy president says he has faith in the political process.
Kenya is a democracy, it's a constitutional democracy, and we have elections every 5 years. Much as we are struggling, we want to wait for the elections on the 10th of August 2027. Kenyans will wake up early, go to the ballot, and elect leaders who can take care of their country.
He wants to remind people that a strong Kenya is not only good for Africa, but for the world.
Kenya is an anchor state, and the stability of the Kenyan nation stabilizes the East African region, which is also important for American strategic interests. So a stable Kenya is good for America, and it's good for the world.
Wendy Griffith, CBN News.
Supporters say Gachagua is being punished for standing on principle. Critics say he's just rebranding the scandal as a martyrdom. Whatever the truth, one thing is clear. This impeachment is not just about Kenya politics. It's about how faith, power, and public opinion are increasingly being weaponized. Let's shift to Uganda, where a controversial proposal with the United States has people asking, is Uganda becoming a dumping ground for rejected asylum seekers? According to reports, the US wants Uganda to host migrants and refugees denied entry into America. In exchange, Uganda would receive development aid and financial incentives.
Uganda's recent deal with the United States to take deported migrants has attracted controversies, especially from the human rights activists. Human rights lawyer Nicholas Opio has linked the deportee deal to human trafficking and said it will leave status of the deportees unclear in the East African country.
Those agreements must not violate international law. It appears to me from the information we have had that the bilateral agreements being considered or already drafted between Uganda and the United States in respect of involuntary repatriation of non-national immigrants from the US to Uganda would be in violation of international law. In fact, it may even be in violation of Ugandan law because we are bringing in foreign nationals without status in this country.
The human rights activist has described the deal as a political agreement between the United States and Uganda that did not respect the fundamental human rights in the country.
Sort of human exchange for mutual benefits between Uganda and the US is a deeply political matter. For the US, they are dealing with an inconvenience in their country. For Uganda, they're trying to position themselves to go back in the good graces of the US following adverse actions by past US administration towards Uganda as a country and Ugandan officials in particular. So this is really politics at play. Unfortunately, it has human lives involved in it. And I think that it is really sad that we are sacrificing human beings on the altar of political convenience by states.
The Ugandan parliamentarians are now calling for openness in the deal, in that the public should be made aware of the details of such agreements.
We can host anyone under any such arrangement. We only demand that formalities must be followed at all time. And the people of Uganda must have a voice in all what is transacted on their behalf. The challenge we have is that our bureaucracies, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, has not been open. Unlike the US, which is normally open, our country internal dynamics, there is no openness. And that's why we shall demand to know the entire details of any arrangement whatsoever.
In July, the US deported 5 men with criminal background to the Southern African Kingdom of Eswatini and sent 8 more to South Sudan.
Sounds practical. Maybe, but here why Uganda must reject this deal. First, Uganda already hosts more than 1.5 million refugees from South Sudan, Congo, Somalia, and more. Its systems are overwhelmed. Second, this deal shifts a moral burden, a rich nation into a poorer one. It's a modern form of outsourcing responsibility, dressed up as aid. Third, most importantly, this threatens national sovereignty. Accepting migrants rejected from the US could compromise border control, security, and public trust. And let's not forget, these aren't just numbers. These are people fleeing war, oppression, poverty. Is Uganda prepared or even obligated to pick up the pieces? This model has already sparked chaos in UK-Rwanda deal. Uganda should learn from that. Because this isn't just diplomacy. This is transactional migration where people are currency. And that is both dangerous and wrong. And now to Burkina Faso, where a shocking legal shift has just taken place. For years, the country avoided criminalizing homosexuality, even if stigma remained high. But this week that changed. The military-led government passed a law making same-sex relationship punishable up to 3 years in prison.
Burkina Faso's ruling military junta has passed a law criminalizing homosexuality and making it punishable with up to 5 years in prison. Foreigners convicted under the new law will be deported. The bill, directed at what it called perpetrators of homosexual practices, was passed unanimously by the transitional parliament's 71 unelected members. It's part of broader reforms regarding family and citizenship legislation. Homosexuality is banned in about 30 other African nations. Burkina Faso's neighbour and close ally Mali, which is also ruled by a military junta, passed a similar law in November. There's been growing opposition to LGBTQ plus rights in Uganda and Ghana, both of which have tightened anti-gay legislation in recent years. In Uganda, so-called aggravated homosexuality can be punishable by death, while engaging in same-sex relations can carry a life sentence. Since taking power in a 2022 coup, Burkina Faso's military leaders have launched sweeping reforms, including postponing elections that were expected to restore civilian rule.
The move is being justified as a defense of traditional African values, but let's be honest about values. It's about control. That's what this law does. It targets an already vulnerable community to score cheap political points, unite fearful public. International watchdogs have condemned the law, warning it could trigger increased violence against LGBTQ individuals, great isolation from aid and trade partners, and a broader rollback of civil rights in the West Africa. This is more than legal issues. It's moral test for region, and the world is watching. 3 stories, 3 countries, 1 continent at a crossroads. In Kenya, a deputy president claims he was ousted for his faith. In Uganda, a deal with America threatened justice and sovereignty. And in Burkina Faso, a law turns human identity into crime. These issues demand more than headlines. They demand honesty, discussion. So now, I ask you, was Gachagua impeached? Righteous justice or religious persecution? Should Uganda be accepting rejected migrants from the US or rejecting the deal outright? And is Burkina Faso a new law, a cultural defense, or a human rights disaster? Let me know your thoughts in the comment. Let's this conversation going. And if you are new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a moment of truth. Until next time, stay informed, stay bold, and stay free.